We are now at the finals. It's Nexus versus Ajax. Everybody's taking Seraphim. And of course, we're meeting on DeRosa's Sanctuary, where basically you have access to all of the mass and you can snap your fingers and go to T3. What is your thought, Jaguar, on who is going to win this one? I have no call to make.
I don't know. Since there's a lot of reclaim, Ajax likes Eco a lot, at least. They're both Satan's players, I read it now.
So basically, it's going to be Eco Horror versus Eco Horror. Zlo is like, same faction, same playstyle, same color. Amazing. It is the symmetrical matchup of the ages. Ajax going for double land factory opening, which is something I see pretty typically on this map because you do want to get lots of engineers out to reclaim early. Nexus going for second air factory, and both of them, of course, for approximately all the power generators because mass, yo, you gotta have some power to burn it.
Yeah, even though there's a lot of reclaim in the base, expansions are still important because it's just literally map control. That doesn't matter that there are maxes there, it is map control. There's a lot of reclaim there as well.
Yeah.
And
both of these players are probably going to crack 50k mass reclaim by 20 minutes. It's that much.
Just 20 minutes? Nah, easy. Way more, I think.
I meant to say 50 because in the last game I watched, I remember the first person cracked 40k reclaim at 16 minutes.
I mean, there was one on the ditch, right?
Yeah.
The last tourney. And I think in less than 20 minutes, 100k per person.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's a fair bit of mass. Each one of these clumps of rocks is 175 mass each. And I definitely misspoke because there's at least 20k in reclaim just in the general vicinity of the base right here. If you go right outside the front door and reclaim the cliffs right there, tons and tons of mass. There's also 4 T2 power generators and some civilian buildings in the middle. I have seen people before move in and capture those power generators in order to boost up their power generation early. But to be honest, by the time you get out there, you might have your own T2 HQ in the base, so it may not matter as much as you might think. We do have some early air out for Nexus, and that's coming online about the same time as Ajax's third air factory is starting to pump out units. So, of course, both of these guys are going to try to win a little bit of air control, shoot down a transport or two, and above all else, expand. As Jaguar was saying, map control is completely essential on this map.
Yeah, Ajax is assisting his one, though, and has a bomber out as well, trying to kill some reclaiming engineers.
I was about to say, is that even going to matter because there's so many more engineers that are going to come out? But I think what would actually be kind of hilarious is just to start ground firing the bomber around in the back and killing the clumps of mass.
That is super try hard. No, that is when you insult the other player outside of the game. I think he's just gonna park that bomber in the expansion in case the transport does drop.
Looks like he's got it moving around to the left now. So he's gonna try to pick off some engineer up on the front edge. He did win air control, so that is going to be pretty nice. He's plinking away at the T1 transport, and everyone take note, this interceptor is doing a pretty dang good job of damaging the T1 transport. Nearly got it before it finally died.
Yeah, but he has another interceptor on the way, and if he would ground fire with his bomber, I would be very impressed. But I think he's a good
There's the bomb.
And that is a lot of NGs going down.
Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 engineers in one bomb. That is brutal. Although we did see a 7 engineer bomb earlier in the tournament. What is it today with this? That is amazing. Ajax is dropping 5, 6 land factories out in his right expansion. He's also getting an unholy number of land factories online in his base, and he's free to bring his own transport back undamaged to drop the other expansion and try to deny, which Nexus is dropping his own right now. This is just an insane opening from Ajax. Completely outplayed Nexus.
Yeah, we'll see if Nexus will recover. Ajax has his expansion way quicker. A lot of reclaim and production already up.
Nexus is building power generators with his ACU and 3 engineers. That's investing like 200 mass per tick in making more, or 200 power per tick in making more power.
Yeah, but it will be way quicker, and he has more than enough since he's upgrading 3 mexes at once.
Transport shut down.
Yes.
But not before it delivered its payload. So there are going to be factories coming online. Got 5 engineers versus 4 with units already in the base from Nexus's trickle of T1 coming down from the north. So that's
Ajax
probably going to be...
Yeah. Goodbye.
That's going to be a win on this expansion. I like how he's conscientious about moving the tank away from the engineer so it can't be reclaimed. Let's see. What is Yuri talking about? Oh. Okay, so Nexus still dragging out more T1 power. I'm actually going to zip into the cheat menu here. Nexus at 11k reclaim, 29 mass per tick, 940 power, so about to crack that 1k barrier. Ajax is only at 780 power, but he has 16,000 reclaim, 5k ahead of his opponent with 37 mass income, and he is just continuing to build loads and loads of stuff. He's already moved to T2 Air HQ, and he's dropping T2 power generators. This is going to put him far and away ahead.
Yeah, he's also going to kill some reclaiming engineers at the at Nexus's own base.
Oh my goodness. That's going to slow things down a fair bit.
Yeah, he almost reclaimed everything in his own base, but luckily he did drop on the bottom left, so maybe he can just reclaim there.
Nexus is going to get his T2 air factory done, and he's got engineers out, but he's just now gotten to the T2 phase where Ajax is already 3/4 of the way through building his first T2 power generator.
He seems to be stalling something while building it. I'm going to guess...
Oh, Ajax is stalling hard right now. He has 200 less T1 power than Nexus does, and ended up with his HQ earlier. So right now 100% of his power is in that power generator, and it is taking a while to finish. And there it is. So now he's gonna leapfrog. Nexus actually finished his T2 power generator at about the same time, because he had so much additional income from T1. It's interesting to see people leapfrog each other like that, and it shows you the difference that a power stall can make. Cough, break, pay attention.
Building a few, like, even if you have T2 tech, building a few more P-gens, T1 P-gens before going for T2 might be pretty good. Can always reclaim them later on, and you won't lose mass while power stalling.
Exactly. Nexus ended up with 1100 power exactly in T1 power generators before he went to T2. Ajax only cleared 700. His total income is still lower, even though he has a T2 power generator. Now his second one comes online, and he finally cracks up towards 1800. That was a brutal amount of power stall, and it cost him a lot. Looking at the map, we've got about 100 T1 units with 6 interceptors for Ajax. He's at 63 income mass and 1700 power with 30,000 reclaim. Nexus at 22k, almost full 8k behind. but running 1600 power, 53 income, and rocking about 50 T1 units. He is in stronger control of the air, though, so he's lacking on land units, but I think he'll be able to recover quite nicely, especially considering his head up on power.
Well, Ajax has more air production since he has 2 T2 air factories.
All he's got to do is get the power to run it. He's still stalling.
Yeah, he's spamming power like crazy, but land-wise, he's doing quite well. Trying to deny as much map control from Nexus, so he can't reclaim as much as he can.
We've already got 3 T2 gunships in the field, which are just going to take time to chew through the T1 units. That's the problem. And time is a valuable resource when you're talking pushing for map control. We do see Ilshis out for Nexus, though. Actually, Ajax has them as well, but Nexus are more relevant since they're entering the fight right now. Those T1 units are going to pull back, so that's going to give Nexus a little bit of breathing room, but I think the gunships are probably going to go down to those funky flying interceptors. Did you see the Inties hit the mountain?
I did not.
Oh, they hit the mountain as they were chasing the T2 gunship and like ricocheted off and did this coil thing to go into the gunships. That was kind of hilarious.
They seem to be flying very weird as well.
Maybe... Oh, it's because the gunships were up high over that little peak right there.
Nexus might win air control. Some of his Inties are out of fuel.
Does have more total, though. And he got the better of Ajax on that turn. The scatter makes it a little hard to predict because grouping means a lot in air fights, but I do think that that is advantage Nexus. Oh, and Nexus sacrifices his Ilshivas into the T1. Stuck on a wall section there. That is going to go down to Zooey Fire, and that leaves the right side of his base relatively undefended. He's going to lose some ground there.
Yeah, left side he's losing ground as well. Engineers cannot reclaim at all over there. Just keep getting killed.
If you control shift on the map and look at the distribution of mass that's been reclaimed, Ajax has already cleaned his right side completely in his home base and almost completely reclaimed his expansion as well. Ajax has not.
He hasn't been harassed like Nexus is right now.
Actually, let me revise that statement. Nexus has cleaned his core. Those wrecks are from T1 tanks. He has not reclaimed his entire expansion. So he is still a fair bit behind. My goodness, that was brutal. Sinister, appreciate the sub, man.
Gunship trading on the left. Not sure if they will get much done, especially with air control lost.
There's gunships from Ajax as well, so it's not like it's going to make that much of a difference uncontested. Gunships, they're deceptively strong when you see them in packs, but when you're building them as single units, they take so long to get anywhere when you're talking air versus land. Because there's enough HP on the land units with low enough damage on the T2 gunships that, I mean, you see, it's kind of like T1 subs tickling frigates to death. They're just killing off singular units every few seconds. Meanwhile, it's just this irresistible tide of units towards your base. Now that there's 6 gunships or so, it is making a difference, but it's frustrating to see how little it does.
Early game is mostly just to raid. Max has just sent 1 gunship on attack move, and so Max's or for a snipe or an ACU. And late game, it is very good against high value targets. Just 1 target, a lot of gunships on it.
Quite flimsy, but they do nicely when they get in. T2 Flak just shredding the gunships. They're all dead. So no more air defense as Nexus continues to fight for the mouth of his base. 3 gunships to the left. Speaking of single high value targets with multiple gunships, that is going to be a T2 Mex down. And then probably those gunships are going to move around the back to try and do as much damage as possible while they stay alive.
Should go for the one T2P gen right there. Maybe he can snatch it.
Ajax is going for 2 simultaneous T3 mexes, in addition to building all of this land force. This is just complete and utter carnage.
Yeah, the early map control allowed Ajax to reclaim a lot more. What is the reclaim count on both of them?
Let me queue it up. T2 gunships are going to knock out a T2 power generator over there. Nexus at 42,000 reclaim, and at 13 minutes into the game, Ajax is about to clear 70,000 reclaim. He has 3,000 power, income 3,700. But he's still power stalling because he is spending almost 300 mass per tick between his reclaim and his 190 income.
Yeah, he's going for a T3P gen now, so that will fix it definitely afterwards. But
that is absurd. Yep, Nexus taken the Control K route. It is lost. Calling out nice build order. I have to agree. That's something that Ajax has done in almost every single game so far. He has this honed build order that just utterly dominates the beginning of the game, and his opponents cannot come back from it.
Yeah, the Inti Rush build order.
It's kind of insane. Was he the one? No, it was Tagada that was practicing build orders, wasn't
Yes.
it? Okay, so he's just jumping into these matches and just owning one person after another. It is brilliant to see. Well played, man. Well played. We're on into the second match in the Galaxy Cup Finals. This is a best out of 5. And in the previous match, Ajax owned with a superior early build order. So it's time to see whether or not that happens again at some point during this. Jaguar will randomly pop back in and probably scare me to death with his entrance, but I am just going to have to carry in the initial portion of the match. Both of the players are going Seraphim, so we've got symmetrical matchup once again, even footing all the way around, with brown the color of choice for both. Nexus starting with a land factory in the south, and land for Ajax as well in the north, followed by a total of 12 power generators, probably queuing air after that, and going for early transport. So the map is Seraphim Glaciers, and this one is a booger for early expansion. Basically, it's a 20-kilometer map, so you have to fly everywhere. Walking will get you nowhere quickly. You've got very strategically placed reclaim through the core of the island, so you're going to have to queue up manual reclaim orders in with your expansioneers, picking up the mass extractors with cleaner reclaim coming in behind. And you need to push for as much air as you can possibly manage without destroying your chances of winning the Navy. This is going to turn into a battle of the build orders, and as Jaguar said before he left, if you lose your initial transport, you can pretty much Control K. To that end, Nexus has a crappy build order. I would not actually disagree, but I was about to say you need around 10 T1 power generators before going for the air factory. You can do it on 8. It's a little bit more difficult to get the transport out, and you're going to end up stalling some power due to the reclaim that's coming in from the rest of the map. But most players will go for around 10. So here we have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 exactly for Nexus before the supposed air factory comes into play. Ajax is going to be going for 12 instead, and then he's going to drop 2 back-to-back air factories running the extra power, or using the extra power to get the transport out of one or the other of those factories. And you can see him going for manual reclaim with expansion mexes. We've got a land factory over here with a naval factory built off of that cliff, and then a little patrol order to get all of this mass in hand. You can walk to these islands. Those are within fairly easy reaching distance of the engineers, but probably better to invest in your transport going to one of these outside islands. Usually you'll see the top left going for the top right, the bottom right going for the bottom left, because it is just a tad closer, at least apparently. But sometimes you'll see a play for both of the islands. If we take a look-see down here, we've got a interceptor after a scout. So that is going to go try to tag the transport on the other side with an additional interceptor building. So not as much of a rush as I would have initially thought on that transport. Meanwhile, Ajax on the other side has gotten his transport out first, is loading up a full payload of engineers. That is going to actually be 6. Never mind. There were room for 2 more on the transport, and the scout has picked it up. So this is going to be a race for the interceptors to catch this transport before it can drop its payload at the main island. Oh, yes, that is correct. If this thing gets shot down, that is going to be a huge hindrance to Ajax, but it may not be fast enough. Depends on whether or not he replaces his drop to hit this side of the island. Interceptor is closing in. There is the first volley of fire hitting the transport as he jerks back. The Twitch throwing the interceptor out in front of the transport, delaying that damage just enough to allow for a drop right here. Come on, get those on the ground. Get them on the ground. That's going to be all to the snowpack as the transport meets its doom over the water. So at least he got his foothold over here, but look at that. We've got a T1 bomber coming out to try and hit these engineers before they can get established. He spread only 1 engineer, yes, as Lowe pointed out. So there's a possibility of a quadruple kill there. This is one of the important things that you need to do, is spread those sons of diddlies out once you get them on the ground. And there's the bomb on 3 with an engineer building out of the factory. Desperately need to get a T1 mobile anti-air out before the factory gets locked. That's going to be another engineer down. This NG, there is no way it is going to finish that land factory before the next pass. And please, for the love of all that is holy, yes, there is an anti-air moving out of the factory. The bomber is now just attack moved, I think. Nope, it is specifically targeted on the factory, then attack moved. That is going to get the AA out, which is going to take a hit from the bomber, but it is eventually going to get dropped. That is a massive hindrance to the spread of Ajax's units. However, I want to point out that this is just now loading up to drop the outside expansion. So if we take a look-see here, there is... Ooh, I did not see this. We have got a T1 land factory down. Nexus playing for an island denial on both sides, and he might actually be successful at this. He's got a tank moving up towards the front line. He's bringing his second land factory up, and we've got the third land factory going down there. 4 in total. Reclaim coming in. Engineer cannot finish the second factory. Correct. And that is going to totally shut down that side. We do have a scout here, though. There is a strong possibility that if Ajax is paying attention, he can bring his bomber in and hit the engineers as they drop out of the transport. But I don't think... Ah, yes, there it is. He is now moved. That bomber is scouted, so we're going to see engineers spread down here. But I don't think that's going to be enough. We're going to see 3 die on the first pass, followed by additional, but there is going to be a land factory place. No interceptors close enough to deny as this transport drops another full payload of engineers onto the island. So this is going to be a very tight game with an attempted denial on both sides, a struggle for every single bit of map control. This is not something you see terribly often, where both players are so evenly matched in their striving for the map. Nexus assisting interceptor builds on his second air factory and going for more T1 power generators over on the other side. Bomber, OMG vet on bomber helps. I must have missed something there, but O.D. Wells. We do have 1 engineer out here building another land factory, but in the meantime, we are going to see these engineers succeed. Strategic build of the land factory. Actually save those NGs alive by building a land factory between the tank and the engineers. So that was a bit of a meat shield for him, soaking around 300 damage, actually, and allowing those engineers to finish on their project and scatter out to do their work. Ajax's units not rushing in bottom. Why are you pinging so much in the chat, man? We've got a transport headed for the center, although I probably shouldn't say anything about that because that is a 2K rated player offering commentary on the game. Probably something I should be paying attention to. That is going to give him an opportunity for land factories in the center. Not much to reclaim out here, but, you know, don't turn down the opportunity for 8 mass extractors. Looking down on this side, we've got 2 T2 mechs up already. That is going to give him a pretty hefty leg up in economy, but no navy whatsoever. And we've already got a frigate coming down to lock in the base. This is an interesting way for the early game to play out, where Ajax already has 2 naval factories in the water, but I don't know. It is relatively easy to get other factories in due to just the sheer amount of water space there is. Push come to shove, you can just drop a group of engineers in the back and build naval factories across the bottom where your opponent has no idea that they're even located there. Looks like Nexus is going to lose out on the left island. That is finally going to give Ajax an island of his very own. But he is expanding just about as quickly as Nexus is on the top right. I think it's about time that we take a look at the ecos here. Nexus of Reality at 67 mass per tick with 660 power income, taking a hit on his ACU from the frigate. Then we've got 69 and 1060 for Ajax. So very, very close in mass, but a hefty power advantage to Ajax. Meanwhile, 2200 reclaim for Nexus and 28 for Ajax. Taking a look at air. That is going to be... Oh, hey, oh.
Hi.
Air is favoring Ajax at the moment with 8 inties. Oh, sorry. Not favoring Ajax. 8 inties versus 19 for Nexus of Reality. Dude, you missed an epic early set. They were fighting hard over this crap.
With transports?
So they both lost early transports. They both dropped both islands, and both of them got multiple engineer kills on bombers trying to deny the expansions. And they ended up with the expansions that the players don't typically get from their starting positions. It's one of the weirdest openings I've seen on this map.
This is interesting. Might watch it back. Well, I do see that Ajax has the middle.
That is an engineer drop with Zooies on the top side. Unfortunately losing that engineer to the point defense, but the Zooies are going to clear the entire base in the top expansion. Also, Nexus totally neglected T1 Navy. That is his first factory. He built it after the frigate had reached his side of the map.
Yeah,
so
he went for T2 Nexus instead, as you can see in the home islands.
Yeah.
Ajax has way less, but he has the middle, so...
Last time I checked, they were both dead even on mass income, but that was before the T2 Nexus finished in the middle of Nexus's base. Ajax does have a pretty heavy power advantage, but I think we might see some of those mexes go poof because Ajax is dropping some T1 artillery into the main island.
Yeah, that's going to be a very sexy drop. Might kill Tree.
Nexus is was overflowing almost 30 mass per tick. He's still overflowing 17. He just doesn't have the power to spend the mass he has. He's on 93 mass per tick and only 780 power.
And just like the Rosa, I don't understand, but he went for a T2 P-Gen rush instead. In my opinion, that is not the best. You could just build more T1 P-Gens, it's fine.
There's also a counter drop, Nexus hitting Ajax's island. The difference here is that Ajax is killing T2 mexes, Nexus is killing T1s.
Yeah, can't rate T2 Max if you don't have any.
Also, Ajax is dropping more artillery on the southern island of Nexus of Reality. So that's actually going to be a symmetrical loss of expansions on both sides of the map. This is the weirdest thing because both of them are being very successful, but they're doing it at the same time with their raids. So nobody ever really gets ahead.
Even if Nexus has air control, Ajax doesn't care. He just keeps dropping them. He's just queuing up so many. And a T2 factory, T2 air factory with T2 transports will hurt a lot.
It's also interesting to see the AA on frigates is rather insignificant on a single frigate, but 4 frigates together, totally capable of shooting down a T2 torpedo bomber. That is going to be a little bit of a contest for Navy from Nexus, but notice that there's Zoes that are about to impact the base on the left side. This could potentially KO the T2 Air HQ.
And the torpedo launcher can't shoot that down.
Oh, the multiple drops. Nexus is about to lose his entire right island, and then we have another full cargo of 8 artillery hitting to the north of his base. This is so bad. Nexus is tied for score, tied for mass income, is in charge of air, has far more interceptors, but he just cannot stop the drops. Oh my goodness, this is devastating.
This is a drop heavy map.
That's gonna be...
You can't stop all the drops. It's impossible.
Yeah. That's gonna be 2 T2 mexes up in smoke. And we are probably about to see a focus fire on either the T2 Air HQ or the T2 power generator. Either one, the loss would hurt a lot. That is going to be the T2 HQ. I'm trying to see if anything is being done to counter by Nexus. He did hit the center island with artillery. So there's a couple mexes going down there, but not any serious damage. Nexus is just getting obliterated right here.
Yeah, only thing for Ajax to do is just get air control. And then he's pretty much set. He has more navy, did more damage, more eco. I think, well, Nexus is actually ecoing the top right island.
Yeah. The T2 HQ and power generators survived in Nexus's base. The T1 bombers that he was able to get out killed off all of the T1 artillery. So he did save his power alive, or at least most of it. He lost basically everything else on his home island. He only has 3 T2 mechs remaining. He's rebuilding the T1s. And another drop as soon as the bombers pull away. Are you kidding me? This is probably going to go directly for the T2 power.
Yeah, if it gets that, it's pretty hard loss.
There's a T2 radar coming in to try and get sight on these things. Oh, the artillery hasn't been targeted. The bombers haven't turned around though, so this is going to be free fire on a lot of this for a while. Apparently Nexus doesn't have vision on the power generators, so that's why he's not hitting any of this. But
I mean,
still...
he means at the top left. Nexus is also raiding.
Oh, I see. Sorry.
He did kill 1 T2P gen after, I mean, before getting shot down. If I were Nexus, I would just build in the top right with a T2 engineer. Because that is way more protected than his own base.
He got a T2 power generator online before the previous one died. So he does still have power, but he's about to get raided by more Zoes from the left, and he still hasn't eradicated all of the artillery from his base. This is the kind of game where if I was in this, I would just be basically face desking right now, because I wouldn't even know where to start rebuilding. But Nexus, he's actually got a T2 air support factory on the north side, is powering through T2 engineers to get T2 power built. He's got T1 power generators coming online, and he's starting to store Zoes from
Yeah.
land factories there.
T2 RT drops, exactly. And that is gonna be his main base from now on, because
Well, I mean, if you get hit hard enough, you might as well move, right?
he's reclaiming his T2 PGen at his home base to get the other PGen quicker, and a lot of engineers will go down because of the Zuis, and he might lose the other PGen.
Oh dear. But I think he has enough power built now. He finished that T2 that he can survive the loss of that base. So it's not actually as critical as you might think.
He did lose air control, so it comes down to the T2 RT drops. If he can kill all Ajax's power, then he can do a lot of damage. I mean, then he can even the game out. But he lost a lot there.
Look at the amount of Zuis that are building on the left island.
Yep, same for Nexus. Already has a T2 transport out. Will be scouted.
At what point would you start randomly building T2 point defense around the island?
I would have already done it.
Because that, like, if a drop comes in, it's only 8 artillery at a time till you get to T2. I mean, those are going to help so much with denying some of this stuff. Oh, T2 transport scouted, and that's going to be a fail.
And now he has air control, so his own T2 transport can do a lot of damage. But
He
yeah,
is just going to swarm that.
UEF is very strong in that with his PD, because one RT drop, if he just drops without being moved, one PD shot shoots everything down.
One PD shot to the center kills all 8?
Yes.
I didn't realize the AoE was that high.
Or maybe one alive or 2, but kills most of them before they can do any damage.
Does the Aeon and do the Aeon and UEF point defense have the same AoE, or is the Aeon bigger?
I think it's bigger, pretty sure.
Because I know the Aeon point defense I really like for drop denial. Because even though it is the worst point defense versus T1, when everything's nice and clumped up like they come in on transports, it's just beautiful. One shot connects, and you can kill like 2/3 of a T2 transport drop depending on which one it hits. So
I think one drop and Nexus will control K. Ajax is now dropping T2 transports and Nexus cannot shoot them down.
this is just going to be carnage all over the map.
Gunships around as well, killing some Nexus.
He's actually building T1 tanks from factories in his base. Which, I mean, let's be honest here, is a decent solution. Oh, he only built 2 and then he stopped. What? This is where you could also just build T1 bombers and put them on patrol in your base. Because they would hone in as soon as the transport came close enough to the ground to drop. They would be on their way in.
Drop in the main base, will kill T2PG and probably the HQ afterwards.
Yep. Nexus is trying to move in. This is where you really need to have overcharge, because an overcharge well planted in the middle of that is devastating. I don't think he has e-storage though. I don't see any around.
He's gonna have to accept that loss. Even if he had e-storage, he will lose that. And that drop is already paid off.
Yep. He's building T1 transports out of the T2 HQ to try to block artillery shots. I mean, it's working surprisingly well, but not well enough. I wouldn't have thought to do that, but he's absolutely right, because the T1 transport floats above the factory. Do you think it's enough that the AoE doesn't then impact the factory? Because it seemed like it was preventing some of the damage, at least.
Yeah, it will prevent the damage, but I think it was accidental because he was already queuing up transports.
Ah, okay. T2 gunships in from Ajax. Those are going to start killing off the T2 mass extractors on the outside edge of Nexus's northern base. And now we're just saying, like, Ajax is not really even building Navy anymore. He's already won naval control. He's just going all in on air and drops.
And now he's dropping at the, well, now main base of Nexus, and he can't stop this. All of Nexus will go down, and maybe the T3 mechs there in the middle.
He actually has 2 T3 mechs on that island. I guess he just didn't have anything else to do with the mass.
Yeah, this should be GG pretty soon.
That's a frustrating predicament. Okay, according to Riquet in the chat, UEF and Aeon point defense have the same AoE. And Nexus control case.
Yeah, it was... Zui drops are so brutal.
Yeah. One of the few instances where Cerberus turrets are actually a good thing, because they're cheap and they kill T1 units very well. Although, when they're dropped in a clump, I think, yeah, UEF and Aeon are probably the better way to go when you're working on shore defense and that kind of thing. Or just protecting scattered targets in your main base. Cerberus turrets are a beautiful thing. Well played, Ajax. I do have to say, Nexus did a hell of a lot better in the early game this time. The build order from Ajax did not decide the game, but that was such strong play from Ajax all the way around. The recovery on the islands, the counter drops, and then just, even though he got denied early, he kept at it and slowly but surely just ground Nexus into paste. Awesome thing to see. Well played by both guys, and Ajax is now up to 2 wins out of 5 games. We're up to game 3 in the Galaxy Cup final. Once again, Ajax versus Nexus, again picking symmetrical factions since it is a 5-kilometer map. They're both going Aeon, so they're equally overpowered, and the map is Canis River. Achieved, I know you said you suck at 5K, but would you care to intro the map just a little bit, because surely you're better at this than I am.
Alright, so like the map name says, there's a little river in the middle. However, both people don't care because they're Aeon, so who cares?
It prevents the flow of their artillery moving across the map efficiently. And AA, yes.
Yes.
Okay, so minor hurdles for both of the players. So as we were discussing earlier on, there's 6 mass extractors in the home base, and one of the critical errors I typically make is I don't move out fast enough. There's advantages both ways, and this is kind of what I was hoping to get a little insight on, but again, Jaguar does not prefer 5K maps, so we're both kind of out of our depth here. If you stay in the base, you can build more factories more quickly because you have an extra 10 build power and you can scale up. However, on a 5-kilometer map especially, your ACU is an incredibly powerful combat force. So if you don't get it out into the map quickly enough, you're going to get denied map control, and that can potentially be lethal depending on where that takes place. Not as critical now because, of course, Auroras, they go all over the map, so choke points don't exist. But it is something to think about as you move forward.
Yeah, Nexus went for an early raiding unit. Might snack both engineers at the Hydra. That would be very brutal.
That would be a complete and total shutdown of epic proportions. It would be something akin to what Ajax has been doing to him in the previous games in the tournament with his early build order.
Yeah, there's an Aurora out, and he might Mariko the second engineer. No, he's just gonna accept it.
He tried, yeah, T1 power generators to block the fire. That flare microing furiously, but eventually goes down with the Aurora at half HP. That is a hard hit. 2 engineers are valuable to the extreme on a 5K map.
Especially when they were going for the Hydro. That is power delayed by quite a bit.
That's going to be second land going down for Nexus, already completed for Ajax, but Ajax having to build additional T1 power generators to just maintain his build since he doesn't get that Hydro. He did get 2 additional engineers to the front, which are going to finish and then build a radar and spread to capture the Mexes, but that is going to be Nexus quite significantly ahead on his expansion due to that raid. That's going to be a total of 4 land factories down, theoretically, with the mass extractors and reclaim close to your base. And there is a fair amount of reclaim, not a ton, but there is a pretty good amount. You should be able to run, I think, 5 factories if you get your right and left expansions. So this is going to be close to critical for Nexus. I didn't ask this before. Surely you have played this map before on ladder.
Yes, I have.
Okay. What is your typical factory mix by the time you get up to around 5 minutes?
What do you mean, what they're building in the factory, or just...
Like, you're running, what, 5 land factories, 1 air? You're doing... I've seen this map played completely without air before, because 5 kilometers do...
Yeah.
Sometimes you can get away with it, but it worries me when I don't build air, because I just know T1 bombers are right around the corner.
Normally I wouldn't build air, but on this map, maybe 1 factory is fine, because AA cannot cross the river. You're gonna have to be very selective with your engagements if you decide not to build air.
It's also worth pointing out that both players are Aeon, so even if you went air and didn't build a single interceptor, as long as you didn't get airlocked, you could just suicide T1 bombers into them all day for free Aurora kills. So...
Yeah, that is true. Looks like Nexus is going to raid Ajax on the left side.
If he goes quickly, there's no PD there.
Yeah, killing 2 mass extractors, so he's not that far behind from his own expansion.
ACU's moving to the center to trade blows. That's going to be a reclaimed rock there in the middle for Ajax, who's pulling ahead just by a little bit in score. But I think I'm going to switch over to the cheat menu so we can see what the army numbers look like. Ajax at 13 Auroras, Nexus is at 24. So pretty hefty advantage to Nexus. I think, let's see, 600 reclaim versus 600, so dead even. Ajax at 23 mass per tick, Nexus at 23, both with around 250 power. So they are exactly equivalent in everything except the Aurora count. Is that because of the extra factories that Ajax is building? His mass is in factories instead of tanks?
Maybe Nexus or
Yeah, hold on. Ajax is at 7, 8 factories versus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, they're actually even. What do you know?
Yeah. But Nexus has more units already, and map control's about even. Nexus might have 1 more max.
That's what I'm curious about, is how, if everything is playing out even, Nexus ended up with so many more tanks than Ajax has.
He just used the reclaim more effective, and that kill on the Hydra was pretty important. Or at least killing the engineers building the Hydra.
That's true. He delayed the production because the power wasn't there. I didn't think about that. So he probably got maybe 5, 6 tanks ahead at that, which helped decide the early engagement.
Yeah, he might go for an all-in on the right. He was chasing Ajax ACU with a lot of his forces as well, but decided not to in the end.
Ajax is pretty hard on his back foot right here. He's completing his 9th land factory and able to run them pretty effectively off of the reclaim that he's getting, so my number was pretty far off early on. Nexus is holding just over 50% map control with 1 extra mass extractor.
Yeah, but he has even more units, and they are all over the place. On the left, small raiding force as well.
Ajax's ACU is looking not too healthy as well.
Yeah, Nexus wants this expansion very badly.
If he gets it, he'll have like 55 to 60% map control. And that's also going to open up raiding opportunities on the left again. He's having to move his units to the right to compensate for 100% of Ajax's units moving in that direction, but it's looking a little more even.
Taking bottom left as well, and if he gets that PD up, it will take quite a while before Ajax has some RT ready.
Ajax is about 2,000 HP lower than Nexus right now, which is a pretty significant thing because your ACU is going to be your main, well, damage sponge and damage dealer at the T1 phase. So managing those two resources in a fight like this is incredibly important, especially if your ACU gets forced to a low enough HP that it has to withdraw from the fight.
Magic's ACU was in range quite a bit, and he had superior unit positioning to Nexus. He will have to retreat, but I think he killed more than he lost.
He definitely did, and if you take a look at the left-hand side, he was able to kill the engineer before it got the point defense down and reclaim that expansion. So that puts them on roughly even footing again.
Problem is, if he does back down, it will be a snowball effect. There's too much reclaim to matter. I mean,
yeah,
to come back from that.
Ajax is running 46 Auroras currently, Nexus at 52. So the numbers are looking a lot closer than they were before. Nexus at 1700 reclaim, Ajax at 1900 reclaim. So a slight advantage there, but as Jaguar is pointing out, look at the amount of wrecks that are next to these ACUs. That is just absurd.
Them down, although it might die pretty quick to those arties behind the hill.
That's smart positioning. Ajax shedding more HP that he cannot afford to lose. Although he's only about 500 behind Nexus now. Nexus took a pretty hard hit.
Lose this expansion is GG. They have to fight for this.
There's a counter raid from Nexus on the left side moving up that's going to take the outside mass extractor away from Ajax. There is a radar down over there, so that is going to give intel on where the units are, but I think Ajax is too intent on devoting all of his forces to this right side. He's actually splitting his units to try to prevent the flow of units through the choke from the factory.
Well, Nexus is now pushing back. The advantage Nexus has is that he only has tanks, while Ajax is mixing in AAs and RTs, and they're not going to help against a tank-on-tank engagement.
Why is he building AA when there's not even an air factory on the other side of the map?
I think that AA was accidental. I'm not sure if he's building more.
Very weird. Something to note, well, never mind, it just died. I was about to say, Ajax actually had, no, he still has, engineers on the front doing his reclaim, so he can fight and reclaim at the same time. Whereas Nexus is relying entirely on his ACU to suck up mass. Nexus has a total of 10 land factories built with an 11th halfway, but he abandoned the build. Ajax...
I wonder how many shots that hill in the middle there has blocked.
I don't know, but it's a lot of damage. Ajax is building his 11th and 10th land factories at the same time to get that production up. So right now, Nexus has a slight advantage on production, and it looks like he's been able to sweep away most of the units on Ajax's side. Ajax dipping down to critical HP levels. It looks like we might be headed for a draw.
This will be a draw. Nexus knows it's pretty much over if he doesn't go for it, and yeah, it is below 2500. This is a draw.
Yep. Control K for the draw. Oh my goodness. That's something else. Canis gameplay is tough because every little section of the map seems to be critical, and there's so many units that can come online. It's just that one misstep away from death at all times with your ACU, it seems like.
I mean, it's 5x5s in general, right?
And, yeah, I guess. It's probably true. We've got a rematch since we drew the last time around, and for our replacement third round, we're going to the map Loki. Again, it is Nexus versus Ajax, and finally, we get a faction discrepancy. It is Cybran versus Seraphim. So, what do you think of this map? Do you have any grudges against it?
Not really. I think this is a pretty fine map. Can't get raided too hard. Early game.
As long as no one breaks your trees, right?
I mean, that is pretty impossible. Early game is not that important, I would say. But yeah, later on, mid game is probably the most important.
Yeah. Early build orders tend to be roughly the same on this one, although as I say that I realize Nexus the tryhard has actually gone manual move and reclaim orders on 2 different engineers moving into the expansion. Do you see that crap on the right?
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing else to do at the beginning, right?
It's like Setton's builds. Oh my goodness. Okay, so that's going to be first land, second land, third air for Nexus of Reality. And yes, you would be correct if you thought that that was far too few power generators to actually work in a build that's entirely supported by the reclaim on the right hand side. You'll see the same thing happening over on the left. Ajax attack moving engineers into the clumps of trees on his expansion in order to get a second air factory on a scant 6 power generators. Typically you would need closer to, is it 7 for second air, I think? And then
Yes.
you have to go for 2 additional before the land factory, something like that. So very strong opening builds enabled by that lovely bit of reclaim. I think Ajax is probably going to go for a relatively early T2HQ to take advantage of Ilshivas, wouldn't you think? Because T2 tends to get rushed on this map.
T1 land is pretty fine, actually, and try and hold off.
At least there's not a whole lot of opportunity for Wagners to pop up where they don't belong, he says as he realizes that there's an entire back passageway that could be taken advantage of with.
Oh, and it will take... you can kill Maxes with that. Like, if Ajax controls the bottom right, you could kill 4 Maxes, or you could just kill the Hydro and the 2 Maxes at the left side with 1 Wagner.
Yeah. Might not be worth the T2HQ rush, but definitely worth putting in your build order once you have a T2HQ. So generally speaking, you see the ACUs move the way that Ajax is moving his. Yes, okay, requeue from Nexus. I think that was a bit of an oddly placed move order. Across the front end of the base, both players have already gotten it, but, oh no, it still is here. There's a trail of rocks to reclaim across the front of the base, which I'm surprised that Nexus is not snagging. You can see that Ajax is reclaiming his as he goes across. And then you want to get your ACU down here to claim this expansion with the 3 mass extractors and then move to the south. Both players are doing this, and we do have an early bomber from Ajax, which is headed for the Hydro expansion. That is going to be a nasty bomb right there.
Payback for last game. Might get both engineers, but I think with Micro, the other one will survive. Inti is already auto-locked onto it.
He decided that he was going to singularly bomb instead of trying to attack ground between the 2 engineers, which I think was probably wise. I don't think the AoE is that big.
Well, I mean, he didn't get shot down, so second engineer goes down, Hydro didn't get finished.
That's going to have a pretty hefty impact on this moving forward. Looks like Ajax hasn't even made a move. There it is for his Hydro. He's going in now. He's going to have a little bit of trouble in his expansion. Mass extractors going down that were built earlier, and he's going to lose the Engie that was building his factory.
Glad his ACU is there, so he can just rebuild a new factory, stream engineers, and conquer that position.
I think that's a fairly effective raid as raids go, though. Nexus managing to kill 3 T1 mass extractors and an Engie, and deny that while he takes his own expansion. That's going to put him a little bit ahead, I think.
Well, Ajax did take the bottom right pretty early.
That is true. That is true. Something to bear in mind in this expansion, there is also a rather large rock, 138 mass, and the potential for yet more tree clumps to reclaim. So you do want to get that locked down pretty dang early in the game. It is going to be a little difficult to expand down at the bottom. Ajax does have the opportunity to push hover artillery up if he needs to gain a foothold, but those 4 mexes in the corners of the map Nexus is going to have a little bit harder time gaining and holding those, I think.
That's why he moves ACU. If he has the 3 maxes at the bottom right, then holding the corner is pretty easy.
That is true, especially if you get a secondary base of production online down there. Nexus is doing a pretty fantastic job of getting units across the map this time, though. He's got plenty of raiding units in the top left. He's gaining the mass extractors over there and will get the reclaim as well. And then he's also got scouts across the bottom edge and enough units online to protect his expansion to the south of his main base. I think he's showing a lot better build order off and just in general controlling his land better than he was in some of the previous games.
And like Slow was saying in chat, and you were right, Ajax is rushing T2 land. Transport is out, so he is going for Ilshi drops, I think, maybe?
That's going to be a fun time. Well, he's got engineers. Those are going to be dropping in the top left, but unfortunately there's already Mantis over there. He is moving tanks in to claim, so those might be able to get established, but right now he's just going for rapid expansion. Ilshivas, I just love them. They're so strong at T2. There's no reason not to build them.
I know. I mean, they will win versus Loyalists and Titans. Only disadvantages is that they're slow.
Yeah.
But position them right and they will win.
But that's where you use your transports for drops. I love those 3 Mantis and Scout that were shift G'd into the top edge by Nexus. He's just scheming in the corner, plotting his revenge against those engineers on the bottom. And now it looks like he's making his play for it. I don't know if he can get all 4 before the tanks come in to assist, but this is still going to hurt the expansion.
Yeah, Ajax is running. No, he's going to build factories to try and block.
Trees getting in his way as they all go down. That was perfectly played by Nexus. Just shut that expansion down completely.
I think running would have been more effective.
With the engineers?
Yeah.
Yeah. Running back into the units to protect them.
But he went for style points and tried to build his way out.
Looks like Nexus is slipping a little bit on land control in the center due to his units not being placed well. But I do see Mantis moving in on the 2 mass extractors outside of Ajax's base. It's probably going to be a clean kill on at least 1. And you are absolutely right. Especially versus Mantis, which are the fastest T1 tanks. Ilshis are just creepy, crawly slow. They take so long to get across the map.
Yeah, he will have to, at least the first few Ilshis he will have to drop. But
Transport's not in play, though. He is just walking it out. The Ilshivas, I guess it kind of comes down to micro to a certain degree, because you can kite out quite a lot. But what is... If you get a group of 2 to 3 Ilshivas in one spot, I mean, they can straight up murder 10 to 15 T1s. So,
yeah, especially with Kite and the radar.
Yeah, once you get them into play, they're just an overwhelming force on the battlefield. It's a T2.5 unit, but it's on the right side of the factory upgrade.
If I were Ajax, I would just go for a few issues at start, and then later on transition into what are the hover tanks called?
Yenzines?
Yenzines, and because the speed is just ridiculous, and you can just go around the map, raid some stuff, and they won't catch you.
The only bad thing about the Yenzines is their slow firing cycle. They kind of fire like an obsidian, but with less punch.
Yeah, they are purely for raiding or naval.
Yeah, but again, the speed is just so dang high on them. I am curious, since they've started rebalancing the T3 units and the T2s, the relationship between the two, and kind of the T3s internally to a certain degree. I know the Othams have gotten quite a bit stronger relative to some of the other factions. Do you think at some point it's going to need to be addressed? Because The Ilshivas were so strong, kind of as compensation for their T3 land being weak, but with the buffs to sniper bots, the buffs to the Authams in relation to the other T3 units, correcting a lot of that weakness. Do you think the Seraphim are in too strong of a place for like the late T2, early T3 stage? Or do you think it's still sitting in a reasonably good spot that you can counter?
I mean, you can definitely counter. Ilshis are still pretty expensive. They're like Percivals at the T2 stage. Not sure which one is more expensive, Ilshis or Obsidians. But yeah, early on, maybe, but later on, as the game continues, they will just fall behind the T3 stage.
Yeah, not as much mass density.
Yeah, you can't over-invest in Ilshivas, and the problem with that is that you won't have a lot of them on the map, and they're pretty slow to move around. Same with Percivals. Early on, they're not that great, but once you got a decent amount,
yeah.
yes.
I mean, 10 Percivals in one spot, short of having a T4 to deny them, that's just terrifying to go up against. Oh!
Yeah,
Wagners. Those two Ilshivas killed the Wagner as it was going into the water.
Oh yeah, I see.
Yeah, Nexus was trying to get some Wagners up to go and raid around the backside of the base and just got closed out hard. I had not thought of it that way, and you're right, because I've played games before where I've drastically over-invested in Ilshivas, and then later on in the game, like, it does really, really well versus about the first 5 T3 land units. And then the longer the game goes on, the worse the Ilshivas get versus the T3. So
yeah,
I think you're definitely correct on that one.
and the difference with Percy's and Ilshis is like Ilshis are T2, and T3 will be way stronger. Percival's, their next counter is a T4, and that will be
And they
quite
beat
some
them
time.
mass for mass.
Yeah, that as well. It will be quite some time before someone has a T4.
You remember what we said about Wagners at the 2 mass extractors at the expansion?
Yep.
Killed off the Hydro as the Ilshis came in to drop it. So an effective raid overall. You know what they should do to balance this better? They should give Wagner's stealth.
Nah, that is just play pizza and then with Wagner's.
At least they can't drag the mobile stealth fields with them underwater.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, we did have some UEF players earlier in the tournament, guys. Just not recently. Guys preferring other factions, it appears. So to brush up on our knowledge of the map after we've had our obligatory bantering session, we've got a T2 HQ in both land and air for Nexus, who is also pushing a T2 support factory pretty hard. So a fair bit of tech production up there. And then we've got a T2 land HQ with paused air factories for Ajax, which is kind of indicative of a power problem, but I don't see... I guess that's his gun upgrade. He's rushing the gun upgrade on his already Nano T2 ACU. He's gone for the full Rambocom again.
Yeah, that's the advantage. If you go full Ilshis, you will have to win or die.
Yeah.
Or do enough damage. But the problem is he will lose his power pretty soon because Nexus is making 2 Corsairs, and I'm pretty sure they're going to go for the T2 power generator, no shield over it, and he passed his air, so he won't outproduce Nexus in air.
There's 13 Ilshivas, 19 Interceptors up for Ajax, who's running 57 income on 1,100 power. Nexus is at 1,100 power as well. 72 mass income, so slightly ahead on that. And he's done some teching while Nexus has been upgrading his ACU. But that's going to give him 5 Rhinos, 2 Wagners, 36 Interceptors, and 2 Corsairs. So he's a little behind in land units, but pretty drastically ahead in air. So yeah,
Corsairs seem to be going in right now.
A bad time to be a power generator when there's Corsairs around.
The only T2P gen as well.
At least he's already finished his upgrades. 1 pass, KO. That is a hard hit. Single most valuable target for bombers is power generators.
Now going for the air control.
If he wins that, gunships are going to be a massive issue. Or potentially just straight Corsairs. Wow, get wrecked. That turn, though. I don't think Nexus even lost 5 Interceptors on that. And he completely ended Ajax's air.
Yeah, and now he's going to drop all around the map. But he still has to stop this push.
That is Ajax's ACU, Rambocom Extraordinaire pushing with a group of Ilshivas. The only thing I think he's lacking here is he should have mobile flak with his ACU. I don't think he realized how far behind he was in air. There is a mobile flak out of the factory on the bottom side, but his ACU is going to be in a somewhat precarious position until he's able to re-secure that.
And Wagner just got dropped at the left side and is going to kill 2 T2 Nexus.
Isn't it sexy? That is incredible.
But yeah, Ajax is missing flag. If I were him, I would just try and sneak a drop in with flag with that T1 transport.
Yeah, because if you got it close to your ACU, you'd be in a much better position. 2 more T1 transports carrying Medusas are going to drop in on engineers, and then the far expansion covered by perfect air domination. Multiple flak coming out of the factories now, moving up towards the north. Corsairs are going to be a persisting problem for Nexus.
Yeah, it is all or nothing for Ajax at this point. This push either succeeds or he dies. If he does succeed, he can kill a lot of power, at least, and maybe HQ, but he is under fire by gunships and multiple Corsairs.
I mean, 80 regen is not a thing to be taken lightly, especially when it's stacked on 15k HP, and he is going to be vetting up as this goes on. So he has the potential to keep his ACU alive for a really long time. Maybe long enough to get flak to his ACU? I don't know.
Oh, he's gonna kill the power, and hopefully that's for him. Maybe
he's got to overcharge the Rhinos. I think he got distracted too thoroughly. Also notice that he only built 1 energy storage, so he's able to overcharge, but he's not able to kill the T2 Rhinos in 1 hit.
He's very close to a vet. Flag is still...
Oh, this is going to be close. Can you get it? There's the vet, but that didn't give him enough HP. Oh.
If he waited for the flag, it could have pulled it off.
Yeah. But look at his base. He is going to get gutted when that T1 comes through. He would have had, though, overwhelming land control. It was air that killed him. We're up to round 4 in the final. So far, it is 2-1 favoring Ajax. And the map is Desert Planet. Both players taking UEF. I don't really have a whole lot to say about this map because it is large and sprawling and requires very fast and strategic expansion, something that I'm not particularly good at.
Yeah, the expansions are clearly shown.
Yeah, it's the core 3s, right?
Yeah, one on the left, one on the right. Kind of like open palms or standing stones.
Looks like both players dropping first land factories. We've got 2 power generators, then Hydro Push for Nexus of Reality. And Ajax is going 1 power generator and pushing said Hydro as well. Both going for second air factories, it would appear.
Yeah, but Ajax is going to assist with a lot of engineers, like he did in previous games, and try and airlock.
I see it happening already. Do bear in mind when you're on this map that there is a pretty hefty chunk of reclaim to the front right and left of your base, so you don't necessarily have to jump for mass extractors, but at the same time, don't depend on that too much. You only have 3 mass extractors in your core base, 6 in your entire home area that are pretty dang spread out. You're gonna have to own map control in order to maintain any kind of long-running economy.
Yeah, Ajax will finish the Hydro quicker and probably his air factory quicker, even if he has to build additional P-gens. But he has so much assistance.
That's also going to put him in a position to heavily assist his air factory with the extra power he has. So that is going to be quite nice. He's got 3 engineers. That's actually putting him behind. I think he had to shift his ACU to get the reclaim he needed to finish this off.
He was mass stalling.
That's air factory up and complete for Nexus. Scout coming out with assist on Ajax's air factory. That is going to be first interceptor. So it wasn't as ahead as he could have been. I think he definitely misjudged how much mass he had in storage, but he will recover quite quickly with that amount of assistance. Question is, are these guys actually going to go for lab spam?
I highly doubt it.
Yeah, we've already got tanks building out of Ajax's factory, so I believe the lobby memes were only just that. That's going to be Bomber out for Ajax after the second interceptor. So that's going to be 2 inties out for the attempted airlock, and then potentially denying expansions. Now, the ACU is moving to the right for Nexus, along with 1 engineer, so that's going to be a pretty secure expansion. But to the left, there's just a tank, a walk-in, and an NG, so that could be screwed up by bombers coming into play.
Nexus built 2 mobile AAs in anticipation, having played Ajax before. Knows how annoying he is.
Oh, that's going to get shut down. Nexus has 2 interceptors at the ready, and that's going to be a denial on the air denial.
However, Ajax is already dropping his expansion, while Nexus is just building NTs.
Yep, so that's going to be a Hydro coming into play very quickly. How much you want to bet he's going to put that power into more air? And he's going for a second land factory in the base, followed by a pretty strong power spam.
Bomber bombing the ACU, thinking it was an engineer. But surprise, 10k, 12k HP.
It's a wasted bomb. And also, he didn't notice and went for a second pass. That's going to save the engineer alive, and 2 interceptors come in on the bomber. That is a knockout. So Ajax actually totally losing his early advantage that he tried to take. Well, aside from the fact that he was able to drop his expansion and get it quickly.
Yeah, but his AC was later, so we'll see how that pans out. He's going for a second drop, I think.
Yes, he is. If that gets NGs in on the outside expansion, that could potentially make up the gap. He might get his expansions more quickly than Nexus does. Nexus doesn't have any of his left side built. Ajax has already got his second land factory coming up in his left expansion, ACU placed in the right, and factories going down with engineers dropping in. That is some fast movement from him.
The transport are really sexy on this map, or on any map, any large map.
Maps over 5k. Transports, please. This is a 10-kilometer map, correct?
Yes, 10 by 10.
Yeah, I didn't think it was pushing up to 20. So we've got engineers clearing for the mass extractors. Nothing to build the hydro, but I'm sure that'll come later. Ajax building mexes with his ACU. I'm thinking that overall, yeah, the speed is definitely higher on Ajax's expansion, despite the start that he had. So, impressive stuff. I like his build. I think there needs to be a slight adjustment with one of the engineers picking up an extra boulder, perhaps, to get that air factory finished more quickly. Because if that hadn't happened, he may have been successful in his airlock. But, yeah, very interesting early build from him.
And because of this map, building factories at the expansion is actually better than building them at home. Like,
Yeah.
Nexus has built them at home, while Ajax is just building them at the expansions.
I was about to say, he has 17 tanks total, but over half of them are just leaving the base. 20 tanks. Ajax, on the other hand, only has 14 tanks, but all of his tanks are on the front line.
Yeah.
That's going to be 6 inties to Ajax. Nexus has 8, so slight advantage there. Nexus running 400 power, 33 mass. Ajax 39 power, 460. So ahead in eco and also 1,000 ahead in reclaim as Nexus goes into a power stall. So Ajax did come out quite a substantial bit ahead on that.
Yeah, he also is claiming his hydros pretty quick, and Nexus is pretty slow on those.
Yeah, that's probably the power advantage that he has.
Yeah, they do help a lot. I see a lot of people not queuing up hydros, but that extra power is beautiful.
What is it? The cost and power of one T1 power generator, but you get 5 output. It's more expensive in mass, but...
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure, but around those... I think it was... Yeah, maybe 1 PGen, maybe 2, 1.5. I think
okay, so Hydro is 800 power, 160 mass. T1 power generator is 750 power, 75 mass. So it's double the mass, basically the same power for 5 times the power output. Very efficient, no matter how you look at it.
Ajax is also raiding more effectively at the top left. Nexus is retreating with a lot of his forces, while Ajax can just sneak in and then second force from behind.
I see it. Even though it's only 2 tanks, it's going to kill this mass extractor while he's responding to the bigger force. That is kind of cool. There is a little bit of a raid in the center that's going to be relatively successful for Nexus, but overall, Ajax is just being as annoying as possible. Mass extractor down. That's 2 lost at the cost of about 8 tanks.
Yeah, depends how quickly he will take them. Will determine if it was worth it or not.
And that's another one lost on the right-hand side.
He is getting the middle though, and there's a lot of rough there as well. Plus 2 maxes.
Oh, that reclaim. Ajax is pulling pretty far ahead in income. He's got 3 T2 mechs at the back of the base. Not... oh, and 4. The right side expansion mechs is already built. Nexus is at exactly the same amount of T2 mass extractors, going for number 5 as we speak, as is Ajax, but Ajax isn't assisting his. So he's going to be a little bit slower there.
Yeah, but he has more T1 maxes, so he will make up for that.
He does, and he's also got more units in the field now. He's had enough production time with enough losses from Nexus that he is able to run toe-to-toe. And again, all of his units are strategically placed around the front edges of the map, whereas Nexus is still having to stream a lot of his units from the rear. Although, there is a T2 factory down for Nexus. That's going to give him access to pillars, very speedy tanks, faster than the T1, and they're excellent at wiping the floor with T1. They're just massive damage soaks with the amount of HP they have.
Yeah, Ajax is almost finished his factory. He's now starting to assist. He mostly just assisted his air factory. so he might have way more air, and we'll do something with it later on, but
Let me go take a look. That's going to be T2 Factory online for him. Ajax at 21 interceptors, Nexus at 17. So 5 advantage, about 25% more to Ajax. Definitely enough as long as you don't completely screw your micro to win air.
just now upgrading the expansion factories to T2, at least at the bottom right. He's going to go for a heavy pillar spam and try and take the bottom right with heavy aggression. Might go for a gun later on.
That is
Gun
all
T2.
4 factories simultaneously too. That is a heavy investment.
Yeah, I
He's
would just go
not
gun.
stalling though. 63 mass per tick versus 61 at Nexus's base. Nexus is stalling hard. He must have just started an upgrade. Ajax at minus 32 depending on reclaim. Let me check and see what is going on in Nexus's base. Nexus also has a T2 support factory on the top left, so he is trying to expand his production. And it looks like that is mainly pillars coming online in his home base, causing that mass deficit. He went for a support factory on the bottom as well. So he's got 1 support factory in each expansion. Ajax is going for many support factories on 1 expansion.
Yeah, he's going to try and overrun that position. I'm very surprised he's not actually going for a gun upgrade.
Jaguar, there's also 3 T2 support factories happening on the top expansion as well. He's going full pillar spam, 100%. Also,
And
he
now,
got
mixing flak.
He got 2 more T2 mass extractors on the top side while he was getting those factory upgrades. So he's now also ahead of Nexus in income. More mass, more build power. That equals more units by pretty wide margins. He is starting to focus his units on the southern expansion as well. You can see him moving across the map.
You might try and go for an ACU kill, otherwise I'm not sure why he is...
With the amount of pillars he has on the south, like, he's going to take that whole expansion. Nexus can't contest him without the gun upgrade.
I mean, Nexus has more pillars in that area already.
There's the gun.
And Nexus going gun. So with the gun, I'm pretty sure he can hold it off.
The problem is this map is big enough that you're going to be able to get around the gun commander. The ACU can only be in 1 spot at a time, unless you want to pull a farms and T2 drop your ACU all over the place in the face of AA and interceptors and everything else. But not everyone is that stupid. I mean, brave.
Yeah, but you just have to protect those 3 core mexes. The rest, I mean, if he kills a T1 max and loses a pillar, I'm pretty sure that's worth it for the guy that loses the max.
Isn't it funny how, depending on the success of your plan, it can either be monumentally stupid or brilliant?
Because of reclaim? That's what's upcoming. You can't just keep pushing units without caring.
Yeah, because eventually you hand the mass advantage to the other side.
Yeah, exactly. You have to be really careful about your engagements.
So taking a look back, Nexus is now at 6.5k reclaim. Ajax at 6.6 with Ajax on 73 mass per tick. Nexus on 84. He slipped in several more T2 mex upgrades during that time. So he is actually slightly ahead. Ajax put his mass into factories. We've got 1,300 power income for Ajax versus 1,000 for Nexus, who is actually headed for a stall as we speak, trying to get a T2 power generator online. This seems to be a repeating theme during this tournament.
Yeah, Ajax is now going for full air. He passed multiple land factories, and he wants to gain air control very badly.
That's 48 interceptors versus 28. He is far and away ahead in air already. I don't know why he's adding more production on top of that. That seems a little odd. Of course, I guess why win hard when you can win harder?
You will lose map control because of this, though.
Yeah, I can already see him shrinking on the right side. I'm wondering... So he's going T1 bomber spam heavily. Is he planning to go for T2 air and possibly Janus to clean up some of the land units? Or what's the dealio here?
T1 bombers will do the trick. Nexus has 0 flak, 0 AA in his entire mix.
Okay, well, that could come back to bite him. Ajax seems to preemptively mix a lot, even in situations where, like, he's got 1, 2, 3, 4. He's got 4 flak in the field with complete and total air domination. Like, I don't really know why he preemptively mixes some of the units that he does.
Maybe to... I mean, you can, like I said in the last game, the opponent cannot fight over your land because you have flak in that mix. You can just hover your air over your entire land force and try and prevent bombers, etc. And he cannot fight you.
He is going to lose a T2 mass extractor, though. Pillars have come in and are wiping the top right.
Not sure if he will lose that one.
Yeah, he may have enough napalm. T1 bombers take it out. Dang.
And flak in the middle is killing a few inties.
It's going to make his air win even harder. And that's also left him open to pillar push, although Ajax is just face planting his pillars into that ACU. I don't know what he's doing right now, but it looks like a mass donation.
Yeah, he's pulling back now, realizing that he's not going to win for the gun ACU, especially with that many pillars backed up.
Yeah. Interesting. I don't know. It's odd the way that Ajax has swapped up here, because it seems like before, maybe it's just wearing out over the course of the tournament. Maybe Nexus is maintaining and Ajax is slipping, because I don't notice anything drastically improving for Nexus, but I see Ajax making more mistakes as the day goes on.
I'm not sure about that.
Or maybe it's just that Nexus now knows what to expect and isn't getting blindsided anymore. T1 bombers coming in. That is a lot of T1 bombers.
I would have been very happy if we would kill the ACU with bombers eventually. But yeah, the things are way better targets.
Yep, they're trying to dodge, but that's the thing about UEF napalm. As long as you're in the fire, you are taking damage, so it's very difficult to get away from it.
And looks like Nexus is committing his air. No, he's not.
I think he is doubling down. He has a T2 air factory, and he is building straight interceptors in an effort to catch up. Of course, Ajax building more bombers means he's not building as many interceptors, but here's the air fight that we've all been waiting for. Oh, Nexus
flak.
snuck flak in. That is gonna hurt.
Ajax sees it and will retreat. I think he killed more.
I think so too, but that is going to provide area denial. It accomplished its goal, though. There are fewer tanks in the south now, and those pillars are going in a raiding. However, there's just so many tanks up next to Nexus's ACU that he's now sending to the south. Nexus is dropping nano repair at 50% right now, so that's going to give him gun nano. Ajax has T2 on his ACU and is moving towards the front line. So this is scaling up to look like a little bit longer of a game.
Nexus has a TML at the top. Middle left, actually. You can see that. He can snack a few maxes because there is no TMD. Not sure what the range is, but...
Yeah, I see it. Let me queue it up here. So Nexus can reach the entire top left core. The only thing he can't reach is the mechs that's closest to Ajax's base, the one just on the side of the mountain. So he can reach 3 T2 HQs and 4 T2 mexes, or T2 support factories, and 4 T2 mexes with that tac launcher.
Ajax is going shield.
Yep, it clears the hill.
So Ajax is going for a shield gun T2 ACU. Push.
That is potentially strong. At least he'll get the upgrades more quickly with that T2 commander. He went for a third T2 power generator in the back and just stopped his air production in order to scale that more quickly. I think that he has more pillars now on the right-hand side. Let me actually queue this up again. We'll get a total unit count on the field while we've got a moment of calm. Nexus is looking at 44 pillars, 46 interceptors. Ajax is at 72 pillars. Nearly double the pillar count and 76 interceptors. Holy smokes.
And just like last game, it is going to be an all or nothing. He's
Yep.
going to have to push with his gun ACU or lose out in the long run. He is losing eco.
Nexus is at 100 mass per tick, and Ajax is at 70 with the loss of that last mex. That is a hard hit.
Yeah, he's losing eco and is getting out ecoed. Although he does have T2 and his right expansion, and Nexus does not, so mass-wise might be even.
Oh, Nexus has gone for nano gun, and he's started the shield upgrade just now.
He seems to be power stalling though. He
Ajax-
has two.
Yeah. 2 T2s.
If I were Ajax, the scouts go over now and sees him upgrading, I would just try and force him out, because he cannot overcharge right now unless he cancels.
Ajax did not get the gun upgrade, and he is walking in. I'm not sure what his plan is here.
He can get it quick, but maybe he forgot.
Don't know.
He has multiple overcharges.
He's also tangled in his units as the shield upgrade passes 25% on Nexus. So he's going to devote some units to the side to kill that off. And he is going to snag the tac launcher with pillars on the north side. Oh, that's a Sparky on the front line. What?
Yep. And the tac launcher already did his damage.
Yeah. It's kind of a pointless kill now.
And the
It's
pillars might even
surprising
die.
how well the Sparky can defend itself sometimes. Tac launcher is definitely going to go down, I think. The vet did help it survive some, but
Yep, tank is moving.
no! He left the tac launcher alive. What was that?
Well, it doesn't matter because he has TMD in expansion. He's now pushing, and he might force Nexus
Ajax.
out of the upgrade.
Yeah. Ajax doesn't have the gun upgrade, which is the only thing. The damage is not as important as the range in a situation like this. And you'll notice that Nexus's forces are split. So Ajax is going to come down like a sledgehammer on the core of this group. And if he can break it, that is going to open up a wild opportunity for him. He is trying to get behind the ACU a little bit. Cut off escape. You're 88% on the shield. Just focus fire the commander. No, he's not going to clear it. 95. Oh my goodness.
Make a snipe in the background. Not sure. Air is about to engage. Flak might be involved. Not sure.
Yeah, there is a flak for Nexus. 2, 3 of them just to the south of the commander. Nexus is almost shredded his shield already. There is just so much there from Ajax.
Yeah, he's losing all of his forces, but he's getting out of range from the ACU. He might, with some epic micro, block himself out of this.
I think Ajax is overcommitted now. He doesn't have as many pillars as Nexus does in the vicinity. Focus fire. You had to focus fire the ACU. You can still get it. If he just focuses down that commander, He wins it. There's only 12,000 HP on that ACU. He has 15k plus 7 on the shield.
The pathfinding though.
Yeah, the pathfinding is atrocious.
Not sure. I'm pretty sure he would not get that Nexus.
Got gunships coming from the back for an air snipe. Nexus is going to be very tough to kill with that nano upgrade.
Yes,
with as few units as are available.
All the flak died, and there's no reinforcing flak. Air has been won from Ajax. So Nexus is still in a bit of trouble. He's still getting under fire from Ajax's commander as well. Ajax still has a shield up, overcharging, getting in range.
Yeah, 6,000 HP, and here comes the gunships.
Yeah, still no flak in range. That is GG.
Ajax is down on shielding though. That's the real HP of the ACU in flux now. 4,000 HP on Nexus.
Needs to try and go for a draw, but
there's 3 gunships in. There's no way.
No
way does he drop the HP enough. Oh, 10,000 HP versus 1, and boom! Ajax takes the freaking win. That was close. Oh, man. With that amount of pillars that was coming up from the back, Ajax would have actually been in danger if that had taken about 20 more seconds.
I mean, he could just retreat, right? The problem from Nexus is that he never queued up flak.
Yeah, that's true. Well, folks, that is a win. 3 out of 5 goes to Ajax. Ajax taking the $200 top prize. And Nexus is going to have to content himself, dry his tears with the 125. Well played by everyone in this tournament. There were some fantastic games packed into this, and I do appreciate all of the participants. I know that there were some sponsors behind the scenes that provided the prize pool for this, as well as some from Roey himself, who was tournament director, so thank you to him for putting all of this on multiple consecutive weekends. And thank you to Jaguar for joining me through this casting.
No problem.
All right, man. Well,
fun.
It was. I have got to bail. I've got to get out here quickly, so I'm going to go ahead and spool an outro and bail. I'll see you, man.
Goodbye.
All right. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for tuning in for the tournament coverage, every single one of you, and for supporting, whether it's bits or subs, whatever you felt like doing. Every bit of it helps. I am going to be getting on out of here. I've got a trip to make, and I do not want to be late. Join me next week if you want to. Monday is Oxygen Not Included, and then Tuesday, semi-serious team games as usual. That is going to wrap everything up for this video, guys. If you enjoyed it, feel free to drop a like and share it with someone. If you want to support the channel, catch the streams, or join the Discord, check out the links in the description. Thank you all for being at least partially insane, and I will see you in the next one.